processing. So an update in our UI progress, we decided to use React, which is a JavaScript library, to design our UI based on advice from our mentor. We started by setting up the React UI framework to implement the FHIR client for our app. UI was designed based on the wireframes that we showed in Deliverable 2. Right now we're working on incorporating the back end with the front end. We also need to find out a way to connect the list of patients and phenotypes to the UI. And we're working on a way to present the list of clinical trial results from the query based on patient information and selected phenotype in a table format. So the first page in our UI is the patient selection page. Here, the user can search based on either part of the patient name or patient ID as prompted in the search bar. As the user enters in searchable characters or strings, the top 5 or less matching results will show up that the user can select from. These results are part of a hidden HTML list tag that appears as results show up. Clicking on the Run button or pressing Enter will trigger movement to the next page, and there will be a check to make sure that a valid patient has been selected before moving to the next page. Here we choose the phenotype or the type of trials that the user is looking for. The user will have the patient's information such as name, patient ID, age, gender revealed to them in this page. We're thinking about adding other patient information such as diseases that have been diagnosed or medication to help the user choose a phenotype. The user selects the phenotype that he or she wants to query the clinical trial data based on, and the user can choose multiple phenotypes for the patient, and they will be presented in a drop-down bar. Clicking on the Run button will display the results. Here the results are presented in a table format. The user is shown the trial, inclusion criteria, exclusion criteria, and location of the trial. Inclusion criteria is basically the reasons that a patient is a fit for the trial, and we're working on displaying that information in green. And we are working on displaying the exclusion criteria why the patient does not fit in the trial in red. In terms of clinical trial data progress, we are making use of Beautiful Soup and clinicaltrial.gov's official Python API to filter trials based on medical condition that a user is focused on and the state that a patient is present in. After this filtering step, we will scrape the relevant sections of the page to get the trial information. The scraped data can be saved as a .text or .csv file, and we are using Solr and Clarity NLP, which requires a .csv file so that our file dump can easily be ingested into Solr.
In terms of patient data progress, patient data is fairly easy to obtain. Just read smart/patient resource from GT FHIR HDAP resource. For Clarity NLP progress, we've created a local instance of Clarity NLP running all of its instances and services like Solr, Postgres, etc. We've also identified how we can ingest documents and how the ingested documents will be processed in NLP queries. However, we're currently stuck at loading data into the Docker instances and obtaining patient notes data. More about this on the next slide. As noted before, we're having problems ingesting the extracted clinical trial data into Clarity NLP. We're mainly confused with whether we need to ingest the documents just into Solr or if we need to add them to Postgres DB as well. We have to figure out how we can create a new Solr schema since the default Solr instance doesn't have clinical trial information in it. We're also facing problems finding the patient notes events data. This data is supposed to contain the notes of nurses and physicians, but we couldn't find a table in Mimic with the note event's name. Here we have our Gantt chart. We currently are at Deliverable 3, where we have finalized our architecture and finalized the front end of our UI code. We are still integrating that with the back end of the app and completing the build of the back end. Moving forward towards the end of the semester, deliverables 4 and 5 will be having our first initial deployment of the app, complete debugging of the app. We'll be making and creating a user manual. We'll also be compiling all of the data into catalog.pdf and providing instructions for the instructors to run our web-based app.